Hello and welcome to my channel. My name is Lynn and today I'll be flipping the Papercraft Society box number 25. This one was designed by Olga Direktorenko, who is the designer behind Paper Discovery, a brand which I really love. This is a quick preview of the 5 cards that I'll be making in this video, and I'll timestamp this video, so if there is one particular card you want to see me making, you can hover over the timeline and look up that timestamp, which will be bookmarked, and you can skip straight to that card. So I'll be, as a flip video, I'll be making at least one flat, one layered, one interactive, and one pop-up card. This is the pop-up card here. And in today's video, I'll be making 2 interactive cards, but they're basically the same mechanic, just 2 different looks is all. And because I didn't actually get to using this kit for my holiday cards, instead I'll be using it for some birthday cards of folks who are winter babies. So I think that this kit is pretty versatile in that way, although a lot of the sentiments are for Christmas, so if you do want to use it for a different occasion, you may need to find some sentiment stamps or die cuts from your stash like I did today. Starting off with my flat card, I drew myself some snowbanks because what I'll do is actually stamp out my scene. And I already did in advance stamp this out onto some very low-tack paper. I actually use Avery label sheets, which are repositionable, but you can use any kind of masking paper that you prefer. And I already have an idea for how I want to lay out this scene. So this little gnome mushroom house is going to be in the foreground as sort of the focal point, and I'll go ahead and stamp out a couple of other things right by the hut here. And one interesting thing about the lamppost here is that it's actually in 2 pieces, 2 separate stamps. And what's cool about that is that the top portion of the lantern, by the way, this that I'm fussy cutting here, this is the stamp that's on the repositionable address label, so I'll be using this as a mask. And the mask will just help me to stamp out the background of this image, and anything that might overlap with this stamp will get blocked off essentially, so that it appears a little bit more true to life, since you won't see whatever this little gnome house would be covering. And so it's a way of adding a lot of different layers to your scene, and that way it just looks a little bit more natural, a little bit more realistic. So as I was saying about the lamppost, the top portion of the lamppost is separate from the pole, and that little lamppost, the light at the top there actually even has a coordinating die. And what's cool about why they made it as 2 separate stamps is that if you look at some of the inspiration photos, you'll see that you can actually have your gnome hold the little lantern. So not only can it be the light at the top of your lamppost, but it can be a little handheld lantern for your gnome as well, which I think that's really adorable, and it's so awesome how versatile they made that. It's pretty unique. I think it's nice and very thoughtful that they've broken it out that way. So I'm going to mask off probably more than I really need, because you really only need to mask off what you think you might want to stamp something behind. That way you don't stamp over an already stamped image. And so I forgot that with the little gnome house, we also get some a little chimney, which is just like a little mushroom that's kind of sprouting out, and some smoke. So I went ahead and stamped those. And that's a case where I did want to mask off the roof portion of my gnome house so that it actually looks like the chimney is coming out of the mushroom top there. And so now I'll go ahead and just stamp out the sort of the mid scene. So there's this one stamp that has a row of houses, of 3 houses, and I just separated those off so that I could stamp some to the left and some to the right of my main gnome house in the foreground. And this stamp here is kind of cool. So there's actually several different trees. So there's I think 2 stamps of outline trees that you can color in, and then there's this stamp which is more silhouette style trees, and I do already have everything masked out, and that's why I can stamp right over the images that I've already stamped in my foreground and midground. And I'm doing first and second generation stamping so that you get some effect of like a whole forest of trees back there. And what's fun is when you peel off your mask, you can actually really see how that starts to come to life. And between our foreground and our background, there wasn't a lot of distinction, so I went in with some pastels and just added some blue highlights just to ground that out a little bit more. And I have a little bit of a secret to share. I actually had to redo all of that stamping because I didn't like my first coloring, and so I redid that whole thing and then colored it again using color pencil instead of my alcohol markers, which I think turned out a lot better. And because this is a flat card, as you saw, I took a mini ink cube around the 4 edges of my card base to kind of give it the look of having a color cardstock matte layer. But in reality, that's just ink. So that's another way to sort of get a faux matte if you want. So here are the pieces to assemble your gnome. And I'll show this the one time here, but I do use several gnomes throughout, and I won't show you the process for all of them. You could die cut out of multiple colors of solid color cardstock or pattern paper, whatever you like. I chose to die cut everything out of white, and I'll just color it in. And I'll show you all of the pieces that you'll need to assemble. There's an option to create a female gnome with the long braids, or you could do a male gnome with the beard. Totally up to you which ones you prefer for your project, and I'll use both, but I'll only show how to assemble the one. The male gnome is pretty similar to this. So one of the things to keep in mind is that some of the die cuts will need to get cut out twice in order to sort of get all of the pieces assembled and layered up. And so I'll show you how what those pieces are in a moment. Here I'm just going to color in the braids for my little girl gnome. So one of the hat piece, you'll need to basically cut out one full hat. As you can see, I've colored that one in purple. Another hat where you're just going to take out the cut out the nose where the score line is, and then a third hat which will be the brim and nose of the hat, and we're gonna it's almost like decoupaging it up. So here I'm just gonna cut out the brim of one of my hats, and then I'm gonna cut out the little fuzzy end. So there's that. And then on this third die cut, I'm gonna just cut out the nose. So the hat will be assembled in 3 layers. The beard, I've used that as the face of my female gnome. So I'm gonna turn it upside down from how you would use it as a beard. And with the hands, there's 2 different hands, and I got die cut those twice. And on the second die cut, I just cut out the gloves. So here's a look at all of the pieces you'll need. You'll need one body, the pieces for the hat, the beard, which I'm using as a face for my female gnome, her braids, and 2 little bows that will go in her braid. If you're going to do the male gnome, you wouldn't have the braids and the bow. You would color your beard as a beard in the correct orientation. So here's how I'll layer things up. Starting with the hat, I'm going to put the brim on. Now the brim does have the nose as well. And then I'll attach the little fuzzy ball at the end of the hat and the nose on top. So we'll have at the nose portion 3 layers. And then I'm going to put the little beard. You can see how I'm going to put that behind the hat and nose. And I'm just doing a little bit of a dry fit so that proportionally I can sort of see how much of this face I want to show. So I'm going to actually put the hair on top of the beard / face. I'm going to trim off the rest of that beard that I don't need. And then I'm going to attach my hat and nose to that. So you can see how I've got a little bit of her chin showing. Then on top of the braids, I'm going to add the 2 little bows on the ends. And you can see you didn't really need to color the entire braid because not especially that top portion won't actually be seen. And then I attach the body, but you can you may or may not notice I'm only attaching at the very top, so the braids aren't glued down just yet. And the reason for that is when I go to attach the arms, I'll be able to tuck those under her braids. But before that, I'll go ahead and put the gloves onto the arms, and you could use a different color for that, color in the gloves in a different color, but I just chose white to match my brim. So here you can see I can position her arms however I like, and just tuck them in under her braids because I've left that unattached at the moment. And so I'll get her second arm in, and you could have the arms waving, you could have them holding things, as I mentioned before, so lots of different ways to pose and position these cute, adorable little gnomes. And so for my layered card, now that we've seen how to construct the gnome, I'll move on to the card construction. So I have a die in my stash that will cut out this Slimline sort of 3-window card front, and I'll if I can find links to everything that I use, I'll definitely do that. I know that because Papercraft Society did their 50% off of the card boxes, this kit did sell out. There are other kits available still for sale, not at the 50% off rate, but I'll leave a link to that anyway in case you want to check out some of the other Papercraft Society boxes. But what I have here in terms of the snowy scene is just a piece of the pattern paper, and this was the pattern that had 4 different well, it was 2 different designs, but each one repeated 2 times. So you had 4 mini scenes on the 1 A5 sheet. And I thought that since I don't make cards that small, I would use those scenes through these little windows, which I thought worked out perfectly as just a nice sort of snowy backdrop to create my little scene here. And the little mushrooms and other little cute characters that I have here, they're actually from a paper discovery set that I think I got this as I'll have to link to it. I don't know if I got this in a mystery bundle or I think it was a mystery bundle. It was, or a treat bag. Maybe it was the Halloween treat bag. I'm not 100% sure, but I do know it was a paper discovery set, and if it's still available, again, I'll leave links to it in the description box below. But I thought it was just really adorable because it's got these mushrooms, and it's got these little mice. There are actually 3 different ones in this set, and I think they're all just super super cute. And as you can see here, I've already put on my my little girl gnome and my little boy gnome, and I'm just adding some glitter accents as a snowy little detail to my mushroom tops here. And I just think the glitter accents just add a little bit of texture and some fun detail. So I'm gonna even create some snowbanks, so it actually looks like our gnomes and mushrooms and characters, they, I think, feel a little bit more grounded when you have something like either a bit of color like I did on the first card, the flat card, or something like this to actually kind of suggest that they are, there's a little bit of a shadow, a little bit of a highlight where they are standing. So so that is basically this card complete. You know, it will be this actually could be for anything, honestly, because I don't have a sentiment on it, which I struggle to put a sentiment onto cards that are scenes. I don't know why it's so hard for me to do. So you'll see that as a theme on a lot of my cards here today. So for this one, I've chosen another pattern paper. This one was a 2-up design. So on one A5 sheet, there were 2 scenes, and I am just going to use one of them trimmed down. This is a 6x6 card, and it's going to be a shaker easel card. At the bottom here, I've just scored the front of my card in half, so exactly at the 3-inch mark. And the top half, I'll have my snowy scene, and the bottom half, I just put another layer of white cardstock just to match the border of the top. And included in this Papercraft Society kit, which if you haven't seen, I do have an unboxing to it, so I'll link to that if I haven't already in the upper right hand corner. There's this gorgeous set of dies that you can use to cut out this wreath of sorts or ring frame. I'm not sure what you would what you would call it, but what I've done is there's actually 3 dies. There's an outer edge die, a decorative die that cuts your pattern out but does not have an inner or outer edge, and then there's an inner aperture circle die. So when you combine those, you can in different ways you can get different die cuts out of it. So using the outer and inner, I was able to create this solid version here. That's going to be the back of my card, and I did die cut using a circle that's kind of somewhere in between the inner and outer edge, so that I can have a nice circular piece of acetate, since this will be a shaker card. And the reason why I have those white layers, just so that I have a nice finished edge from the back. Not that many people will probably see this card from the back, but I still like to have that nice finish. And I've just used the, in this kit there are 3 different sort of edge dies. 2 of them cut out snowbanks / sort of grassy hills, and then 1 cuts out mountains. And I've used that to cut out these little layers of snowbanks here. And I'll show you how I did these little Christmas trees. I'm gonna just use some plain PVA glue, which does dry clear. And then I'm gonna just douse it in some of the glitter that came in the kit. And when this dries, it's not going to dry white the way that it looks here. It's going to dry clear, and the glitter has sparkle and shine, but not a lot of color to it. So if you wanted like really opaque snowy white, I would use something like the glitter accents that I used earlier on my layered card. But here I just wanted a nice subtle sparkle effect. And so So it just really depends on the finish that you want. If you want something that actually looks white, solid white, like how the glue looks first when you first apply it, then go for something like your Nuvo drops or glitter accents. And if you want just this slightly more kind of subtle sparkle and shine, then this is another way of achieving that look. So I'll go ahead and start to assemble my different scene layers. So this is my mid scene here. And my back scene, I don't have anything. It's just a snowbank, but I didn't try to match exactly the snowbank that's on the pattern paper, but I did want it to be at the same level, just to be a close approximation of that, so that when the easel is flat, then it almost looks like it's just a continuation of the pattern paper. And so what I'll do now is I'll go ahead and add some foam strips, and I'm gonna double this up, but it's actually 2 different thicknesses of foam. So I have added to my stash or variety of foam sheets this really thin foam that's only 1 millimeter high or in thickness. And my regular foam is about 2 to 3 millimeters in thickness. And so the really low profile foam sheets, they're really, really nice when you don't want to add a lot of height, you just want to add a little bit of space. And I find that doubling up on my regular foam it's just so thick. I worry about how whether it's going to cost extra to ship and things like that. But here I'm doubling up a standard foam, 2 millimeters or so, plus my low profile foam, so that it's not quite as thick, but it gives me a little bit of extra room for the shaker bits to move around. And so I'll go ahead and just bend this piece of foam all the way around my circle frame here. Now that I have all of my scene elements set, my gnome is going to be part of the scene, but I'm going to put her on the outside of the shaker. That way the shaker bits don't cover her up. And and when you add your foam, you want to make sure there aren't any gaps. So I did add a little extra triangle there to make sure that I seal this off completely so the shaker bits don't escape. And I just have a little mix here. I used some of the snowflake confetti that came in the kit. I've got some faux snow, and then I've got some sequins. And it's just a nice wintry, snowy mix that I thought would make it a little bit more interesting than just filling it with one type of fill. And then, so now that I've got this completely sealed off with a second layer of acetate, which is how I prefer to make my shaker cards. I like to close it off with 2 layers of acetate. That way it's a lot easier for me to, once I have this independent sort of shaker unit or as an element on its own, it's easier for me to kind of then position it on my card. And with my little gnome, I did use a little bit of my Kalal 3D glue gel because she is assembled by a few different layers, so I wanted everything to feel as sort of level as possible. And when I go to attach this to the card, I'm only going to glue it on the bottom half so that when you prop up the easel stand, the top portion isn't glued down. And the effect of this is that when the card is closed, you get one scene, and when the card is open or used as propped up as an easel, then your background you can see straight through, which I thought was kind of a neat idea to have sort of a double effect there of how it looks open versus how it looks closed. And as I mentioned earlier, this will be a winter baby birthday card. So I put the happy birthday sentiment on the inside, which, because this is an easel card and it's meant to be open, I think it's okay to put the sentiment there. But as I mentioned earlier, I do struggle to find room for putting sentiments on my scene cards. But here you can see how the bits are, because we have different layers of the scenes, they do get sort of caught on those different snowbank areas. So I think that's the other aspect of that I really like of layering up my winter scene, because then you get that effect. Another really beautiful sheet of pattern paper is this Starry Night one. It does have even a bit of foiling, which is really cool. And I've done the exact same thing. This is going to be structure-wise the same as my first card. And the reason why I'm making this one is because after I die cut that first sort of wreath or frame, circle frame, I had some of the leftover sort of the fallout from the die in this really pretty sort of, I think it's a Centura Pearl cardstock from Crafter's Companion. And I want to use those. So I kept all of those little fallout pieces and I inlaid them back into a white frame. And here for my backmost landscape scene, I'm using the mountain edge die that comes in the kit. And it's a rather short edge die, so to get a stretch that's long enough for these circle pieces, I did have to sort of die cut twice. But you can line it up one edge of the die with a previously cut edge, and it works just fine to continue the landscape for as long as you'd like. And so here, what I've done with my different landscape layers is instead of having them cut out of the same color, I've cut them out of different colors. So the backmost mountain layer is a dark blue. That did come from the kit, I believe. And then my mid layer is that circle fallout from my first shaker card that I've just cut a little landscape into. And then my foreground is from white. So that's another way of sort of adding some dimension. And I mixed up a lot of shaker fill, so that's the other reason why I wanted to make another shaker card, so that I can use up some of this custom mix that I've created. And it's the difference between this one and the previous one is that this doesn't have any gnomes at all. So even though this kit is has a lot of really fun gnome imagery, it also just has really great snow winter scene imagery. So you don't necessarily have to incorporate anything to do with gnomes on your card, or really anything to do with Christmas if you don't want. I think this is just a really nice winter scene. And because I didn't line up my inner and aperture die correctly, I'm just going to die cut a circle out of this, so that I can just have the back of my front piece be a little bit more solid to hold all of those inlaid die cut pieces. And so that's my shaker complete. And I did use a little bit of baby powder on the inside of my shaker, just so that the sort of static is reduced a little bit and the shaker bits don't cling quite as much to the edges and to the acetate. But I think it's a little too liberal with that, because you can actually see that dusting of baby powder, which I'm a little on the fence about. I kind of like it because it does still make it look a little bit snowy and frosty, but it also just kind of looks a little messy too. I don't know, because it just isn't 100% clear. So I don't know, I'm a little bit, it wasn't intentional, but part of me likes it and part of me doesn't like it. But here's how you can see where that front image, the focal image of the deer, will get covered up if you put it in the shaker window itself. But I kind of like that because it's almost like those snow globes where you have to kind of shake it up to kind of reveal something. And so I think there's a bit of a reveal there when you shake up your card. Moving on to my last card, this is going to be a pop-up card, and again, I'm using some of that same gorgeous paper. I really love the papers in this box, and I didn't use too many of them because they're so pretty. I wanted to make sure I used up anything that I cut into. I wanted to use up fully. So this is the other portion of that one that was featured on my second shaker card. And the happy birthday die cut is from the greeting farm. I just love the scale of this because you really don't need much else. And for my pop-up cards, I generally don't like to do a lot on the front of the card because so much goes into the pop-up scene on the inside that I really don't want to put a lot of time, to be honest, onto the front of the card. But also, it makes for a nicer reveal, a nicer surprise. Okay, so here what I've done is I've just used that same mountain die multiple times to get a long stretch of mountain range here. And I did the same trick with the trees as I showed earlier, where I put glue, and then before the glue dried, I just dipped it in the glitter. But at the top, because I do want it to be a little bit white, I don't want it to be completely clear, I brushed on some white pigment ink. And then at the bottom, just to get a little bit more depth of shadow and color, I did also brush on some of the darkest, I think it was Chipped Sapphire Distress Oxide ink, just to darken up the bottom, which mostly gets covered up by my little snowbanks here. And because I didn't want to do the multiple die cutting, I just freehand cut these snowbanks, which you can definitely do. They don't need to be perfect by any means. And then here I've just got some pop-up stands. These are really, really simple. It's 2 inches long by 1 inch high, and then I've just scored along the 2-inch side every ½ inch, and I scored and folded. Now these little stands, once you fold them up, will create little boxes sort of, and that's how we'll attach our landscape scenes to the card. So I've attached the two stands on either ends of this first sort of landscape scene here, and the first glue tab is going to get attached to the bottom of my card. That's this one here. The second glue tab got attached to my landscape scene. The third glue tab will remain free. That's the spacing between the back of my card and my scene. And then the fourth glue tab is what will get attached to the top of the card. So we'll do that again. This is the second glue tab. That's the second ½ inch section that gets attached to our scene. The first glue tab is going to get attached to our the bottom of our card, so the bottom of the scene. The third glue tab will remain free, and that's going to be sort of the spacer between this scene, which is my foreground, and the first scene that I put down, which was my midground. And then in this case, the fourth and final glue tab is going to get attached to the scene behind it. So that scene will pull up my foreground, and here I'll attach my midground to the back of my card. So that's an easy way to create like a multi-layer, multi-scene card. And what I'm gonna do is not exactly replicate, but sort of replicate my flat card. So if you want to kind of create a similar scene, but in a pop-up scene instead of a flat scene, here's one way to do that. So I've got my mountain range directly adhered to my card base. I'll go ahead and attach some trees, and I'm going to put the darker trees towards the back and the lighter trees towards the front. But here you have a lot of different options for building the depth and dimension of your scene, because you can attach, for each of these landscape pieces, you can attach behind the landscape, which is where I put my dark trees, or you can also attach in front of that landscape, which is where I'm attaching my little village. And so you for each of these sort of landscape pieces that I have, I almost get like 2 layers or 2 sort of depths of dimension there. And so I thought that was kind of a neat thing that you don't necessarily get with a flat card. And again, so I'll go ahead and attach my my little gnome house or mushroom house, some flower boxes, and the lamppost as well. And I do try in my coloring to kind of keep my color palette sort of minimal. So I'm using the same purples, the same pinks, and for my gnome, some green because of the trees. And I try to pull the colors front to back, so there's a little bit of purple in my little flower boxes because I've put purple in the mushroom houses in the mid scene. And so here again, I'm adding some of the lighter trees, but to the front of the my mid-ground sort of landscape bridge there. And again, that just adds a different sort of dimension or different layer. It does feel like it's in front of the darker trees, which are attached behind the stand. And then I'll attach my little gnome as a final character to my scene. So that's my pop-up card. Lots of fun to do, and here's a final recap of all 5 cards. So this is a flat card, not completely flat. Though you could make it completely flat if you wanted. I just wanted to stamp out my scene on a separate panel in case I messed up, which turned out to be a good thing because I did mess up. And then here's my layered card, which is just a slimline card with 3 cutout windows and 3 little sort of mini scenes within. Then we have 2 shaker easel cards, and they are using the dies that come in this kit. And the circle frame die is really nice because there's nothing, it's so general purpose, the design. There's nothing Christmas, there's nothing specific to a particular season or holiday. So I feel like that can be used all year long. And then my second shaker easel card is more of a nighttime scene. And again, I love that there's the different layers and how the shaker bits sort of get caught up on those different layers. So it does feel like snow falling and sort of accumulating on those different scenes or different layers. And finally, my pop-up card using just some iridescent mirror card on the front there for my sentiment. And then when you open it up, you see this really rich scene that I think is really fun to create and not very hard either. You don't really need any special dies to create the pop-up mechanism itself. You just need that stretch of cardstock to make your little pop-up stands. And so that is my final card for this flip video. I hope that you enjoyed these cards and this video, and if you did, please consider liking, commenting, and sharing. And if you want to catch new videos as I publish them, consider subscribing to my channel and ringing the notification bell. Thanks so much, and until next time, happy crafting and have a fantastic day. Bye!